actually start the session, a little introduction. My name is Emmanuel, and I'll be doing your HANA demonstration. I'll be handling your HANA training as well, all right, with Business Objects Data Services 4.2 and 4.1, all right. So this training is going to be for 35 to 40 hours. Basically, it's an integration of how do we handle SAP HANA, and also we will be looking at how do you use data services for basically moving data into SAP HANA database or appliance. All right. So today's session basically is aimed at looking at what are the topics that we're going to look at during this training, and so you will have a demonstration on SAP HANA, an outline of what HANA can do. We'll also look at what data services part is in this entire training. Okay, so this basically offers you a platform for being a HANA developer or a business objects data services migration consultant, which works with both scenarios. If you are a HANA developer, you will also be having the ability to move data into SAP HANA. If you are an ETL migration consultant, you will also know how to go ahead and model data once you move it into the HANA system. All right. So another thing that I'd want to mention is that we are going to record the session, and we will be sending you the recorded session. So do not bother about not having organizer access or not being able to record. You are muted on for this moment, but in case you have any questions, you can always leave a chat message and I'd unmute you so that you can ask your questions. All right. So here, this basic HANA, all right, high performance analytical processing appliance is the abbreviation for HANA, all right, and we will look at, I'll give you a picture about what HANA is. Okay, now this is a broad sense of where SAP intends HANA to be present. All right, this is a roadmap of what SAP HANA as an appliance is. So before we actually go into and talk about HANA as an appliance, there is a little background, a little understanding that you need to have. I don't know if you are all from the computer background or no, but in any case, I'll be talking to you from the fundamentals. All of us know what databases are, right? So databases are basically used for storing data, all right? And if you look at an organization, you would have applications that basically handle to contain or to bring in different transactions, all right? It could be something from a sales perspective, from a finance perspective, from an HR perspective, quality perspective, anything for that matter. And at the end of the day, the application is the one that is running all of this, and then at the background or the back end, you would have a database. This is actually storing all this content, all right? And this content that is stored is where you call it as a database. All right, a database is a software and also is something that is being written to the disk, which is the hardware peripheral from where you can read the data back. All right, and if you're looking at the reporting or the analytics part of it, so individual functions within the organization stores data into individual tables, and then you will have a schema that is basically able to relate different tables on the database, and we're going to go and report this data onto a reporting or a presentation layer. That's how it works. If you've gotten products and concepts like ERP, enterprise resource planning, which are aimed at trying to integrate different functionalities within the enterprise. All right, so you would have a schema that is able to map together these multiple tables so that when you're running a cross-functional report, you are able to look at data from both, let's say, sales and finance and quality and HR, all of them related with each other. All right. So now the backdrop and the not so great part about any of the analytical engines is, in the present scenario, or let's say in the past, what happened was you have two separate systems. Basically, the division of systems is two types. One is the online transaction processing system, and the second system is the analytical system. Okay. The transaction system is aimed and optimized for handling daily transactions, whereas your analytical system is optimized for handling analytics, which is reporting. Okay. You organize data from all of these individual tables into different containers, and then you optimize it for reporting. Okay. And what happens is your transactions happen during the business hours, and after your business hours, data is moved into the analytical system, and then data is organized, and then you're looking at your report in tomorrow's in your report tomorrow. But the entire industry and the market is moving to a level where people really don't have the patience to wait. All right. If you're going to wait, you're going to lose. All right. So that is where we are. So people want to see the data instantly. They want to see the results instantly. They want to see what is happening on the system instantly. All right. That is when this particular concept of having a real-time scenario system has come into picture. And this is an appliance basically aimed at bringing in real-time reporting to the end user. Okay. SAP HANA is basically two kinds of implementations. One is SAP HANA as an appliance. The second one is SAP HANA as a database. All right. HANA by itself, by default, is a database. Okay. And the only difference between the normal SQL Oracle databases and SAP HANA is a hybrid database with the in-memory technology along with it. Okay. Now, if I show you a normal Excel sheet, you are storing data into that, and you know that you can look at data at a row level, and you know that that is one specific set of data that you have. So here, the in-memory part of it means that you are not writing data to a normal disk. Okay, you don't end up storing data into a disk. Okay, the reason for that is if you're storing data into a disk and if you want to read the data, you basically are fetching the data from the database, from the disk, and then you're loading it to the application layer. Then you're trying to do some transformations and cleansing and all of that, calculations, and then finally sending it to the reporting layer. But that's not how we're going to do that anymore with SAP HANA appliance. What we will be doing is basically storing data on the run. All right. What I'm saying here is you have the RAM within a system, right? The RAM is able to handle a lot of your cache memory, and what is on priority, all of that will be handled inside the RAM. And we have moved to a level where we are able to store huge amounts of data inside the RAM itself. You don't have to go till the database or the hard disk to bring the data, but you're storing the entire thing on the RAM. Okay. Now we have laptops which are able to accommodate 4 GB RAMs and 6 GB RAMs, and we've gone to 8 GB RAMs, right? And servers we have 16 GB RAMs and 32 GB RAMs, 64 GB RAMs. Now SAP HANA servers are able to accommodate huge amounts of data, and the RAM capacity that are there in the SAP HANA servers range from 128 GB RAMs to 4 TB RAMs. All right. So that's a nice question here, Aruna. So there's this question from Aruna saying that isn't our data limited because of the RAM size? So that's an important question to think over. So your data capacity is not limited by your RAM size because you're looking at what size of RAMs to use even prior to buying the HANA appliance. So the amount of production data that you have on a system, you look at that and you will see the exponential increase in the next 5 to 10 years, and based on that you're going to buy the SAP HANA appliance. It is not a one-time or a one-size appliance that fits for all industries. Depending on the amount of raw production data, uncompressed production data that you have, you will choose from different varieties of appliances based on the amount of size it's able to handle. You have servers sizing in from extra small, small, medium, large and extra large servers to accommodate data for the kind of enterprise that you want to use HANA with. Okay, the configurations are going to differ. You also have in case, let's say, your data explosion has become a little too much and then the server that you're using is not able to accommodate it. So you also have the options for scale in and scale out options as well. Okay, so we'll come to that a little later on. But giving you a picture as to how strategically SAP has placed HANA to bring about real-time reporting is what we're looking at right now. Alright, so it is not something completely as a software, it's not something completely as a hardware, but it's a combination of software and hardware that we look at in SAP HANA. Okay, so here so now if you're looking at a laptop that you're using, you have processors, right, CPUs. So you'd find that you have dual core processor or quad core processors, right? So what does it mean? Okay, when you have dual core, when you have quad core, you understand automatically that your system is going to be faster than what you were doing with single core processors, right? Why? The capability of the system is going to improve because you are having multi-core processors. The processor basically handles, or the core handles, the different calculations that you do on the system, and the number of cores that you have on the CPU, the parallel processing happens so much. So if you have dual core, if you have 100 rows of data to be processed, the dual core will basically split it into two halves, 50 and 50, and then it will process together. Cumulatively, you will get the result. Okay. The in-memory system, which is SAP HANA, has multi-core architecture, right? It's able to accommodate 8 cores on a CPU, and you have boards which have multiple CPUs, and then you have the rack servers which are able to accommodate multiple boards. Alright, so you're looking at somewhere like 250 to 300 cores on one server, okay, which is incredible amount of parallel processing that the system can handle. Okay, so this and many more options like your column store and all enable extreme fast retrieval of data for it to be reported upon. Now, this is a little introduction about SAP HANA, but SAP HANA is a database, all right, and it has servers that are extremely powerful that is able to go and churn out data at extreme speeds. But without actually having data, there's no point even having such huge servers. Okay, SAP HANA does not generate data by itself. It's a database. You have to put some data into it. And this data basically comes in from the actual transaction systems. Okay, you have SAP, the main transaction system is ECC, Enterprise Central Component. It is strategically placed such a way that it is able to be used by both SAP and non-SAP systems as well. The criteria is if a customer wants to look at real-time data, then you should be able to use SAP HANA appliance. Okay, one is the SAP set of systems, and the other one is non-SAP set. So I told you that SAP HANA appliance has a database, HANA database, and then basically you are having very fast servers hardware that is able to quickly bring out data and being able to give you data at real times onto the reporting or presentation layer. Let's look at this question. How is synchronization between ECC and HANA handled? All right. So SAP extracts data or the data from the SAP ECC system is moved into the SAP HANA system by something called as replication engines. All right. And to handle multiple and to cater to multiple systems like your SAP system, you have non-SAP systems as well. So that data needs to be moved from the transaction system into this hybrid system. All right. So for this to happen, it needs some kind of a replication mechanism in here. And this replication mechanism is done either by SAP's landscape transformation server, which is a real-time replication. There is data services, which is basically an ETL tool which is able to connect to SAP HANA, or the only ETL tool which is able to connect to SAP HANA. Or you also have Sybase replication, which is database or logged-based replication. You also have direct connection extraction using BW on the native NetWeaver stack. So all of these are different options through which you can move data from SAP into the SAP HANA box. If you're looking at non-SAP systems, let's say somebody from Oracle Apps wants to use SAP HANA for improving the speed of their reports. So what they do is they connect non-SAP transaction application systems through either data services or if it's a database, Sybase, or even SLT, and they are able to replicate data into the SAP HANA. So the data needs to be pushed into the SAP HANA system. A few things that you have to remember, or one is that this is not for everybody. This is for customers who cannot wait for data, meaning they need to look at data at real time. This is for such kind of customers who can wait for a little time before they look at the data. They don't really have to go to SAP HANA. Okay, so this is an expensive server. So let's look at how this is. Deepak, you have a question? Yeah, I've unmuted you. If you have a question, you can ask. Yeah, we were basically looking at trying to understand the SAP HANA server, and then we will be moving on looking at what are we covering during this training. Are you able to hear me? All right. Guys, please bear with me for the benefit of us, others. I'm going to repeat that a little bit. So what I have spoken till now is how SAP has strategically placed the SAP HANA server and what SAP HANA server basically is. Alright, so you have the normal databases like Oracle and SQL and all of these, right? They're basically used for storing data, and you have data coming in from different different applications, and the backend for all of the applications is to store data somewhere, and that's usually the database. And I spoke about ERP as a solution to bring in different functions within an organization together, but still having a common database. So the reporting tool is able to execute cross-functional reporting because the tables are connected in the schema. All right. The only problem is we are not able to give out reporting at real-time speeds, and that's what we are aimed at doing. Okay, so to be able to give data at real time to the end user, because the industry is moving to a level where people don't want to wait, but want to look at data at real time. Okay, if you're losing $1 million, you don't want to see it tomorrow. You want to see it as it happens and see if there is a way to counter it. And that's what we want as well, right? So there should be some mechanism to either be able to look at that reporting at real time, or make that whole process of reporting really fast. This SAP HANA server basically is a hybrid server which has the in-memory capability. In-memory capability is basically a term because you are not writing into the traditional hard disk, but you're storing all this data in the RAM. Alright, so on your system you have RAMs, right? And then basically the RAMs, again, you might have 2 GB RAM, 4 GB RAM, 6 GB RAMs, or 8 GB RAMs. Now what we have on SAP HANA servers are basically from 128 GB RAMs you have 4 TB RAMs. Alright, so that's this kind of RAMs that you have, which are able to store all of your data on the RAM itself. Okay, so you're looking at a lot of options. You're looking at present data, the latest data. You're looking at storing specific amounts of data. Okay, all of these we will be looking with the SAP HANA appliance. The database basically is aimed at able to give data at real-time speeds. Right? This is a database still. It works pretty much like a SQL or an Oracle, but being able to give the data at real time is the specialty of SAP HANA. And how can it do that? Reason being, one is it doesn't have a hard disk that it's writing to, but instead it's storing all of that data on the RAM. The second option is that it doesn't have just the row based storage. It also has column based storage as well. So the retrieval speeds are pretty fast when you're dealing with column stores. Okay, but to keep the SAP HANA system separately, you also have I have a question here. Does HANA have database schema similar to an RDBMS? It does, alright. But the thing about it is the SAP HANA schema, okay, it has a similar schema like a database. You can go ahead and create a schema, create tables and all of that. But the persistence layer within the SAP HANA database splits up into row stores and column stores. Though the instance is the same, it is catering to two different actions. When you're dealing with inserts, updates, deletes, basic operations, it's able to use the row stores. When it is actually doing the retrieval of data, it feels that the column stores are much faster than the row stores. So data is stored as column stores as well. Alright. So we'll come to that as I explain what are the technological improvements with this server. Okay. This in-memory technology basically is a combination of both hardware and software. The hardware is provided by SAP's hardware vendors like Cisco, HP, and Fujitsu, and IBM and Dell, and all of these. So the servers that are used with this database have extreme speeds, very high RAM capability, multi-core architecture, and all of these are part of this. The entire thing is to speeden up the processing, but if you do not have data into the SAP HANA database, it's really not of any use at all. So you should find a mechanism to bring data from your transaction systems and put it into the HANA appliance. And for that, saying that there are multiple options. The process of bringing data from individual systems, that is called as the data acquisition, or you can call that as data provisioning, all right? And you move that data into the SAP HANA system, okay? And for that you have different tools within the SAP HANA environment. One of the tools is called as SAP's Landscape Transformation Server. You have data services as an ETL tool, and then you also have the Sybase replication or log-based replication. Okay, so let's try to understand how all of these fit in. Okay, I'll give you a little overview of the architecture of SAP HANA, and then I will dwell about what we are going to look at during our training sessions. Okay, so before we go in, the specific or the speciality of this appliance is it's a standalone server and very strategically placed so that it can be used both by the SAP and the non-SAP sections as well. Okay, it is not mandatory that you need to be an SAP customer. You can be a non-SAP customer not using SAP's tools before, but still for real-time reporting you can use non-SAP sources as well. So the basic understanding for SAP HANA is the appliance itself is very powerful, but for it to process anything it needs data. It cannot generate data by itself. It needs to be pumped in with data, and that data comes from your transaction systems. Okay, and it could be SAP. If it is SAP, usually use SLT replication, or you use data services. If it is non-SAP, you use Sybase or data services, or even SLT because it has been enhanced. Okay, SAP HANA does not have its own proprietary reporting tools. It uses business objects reporting tools and Excel on top of SAP HANA, including Lumira or yeah. So let's look at what are the possibilities, what are the different layers in the appliance, and what each of these layers do. So once we understand that part of it, then we will see how all of this comes together. Okay, this is the split of the architecture for SAP HANA, basically consisting of three major sections. Okay, the first section that you see here, just give me a second. Alright, so the first section that you see here is the data provisioning, the real-time replication services. So for moving data into the SAP HANA appliance, you have three possibilities. One is through real-time replication services, which is also called as Sybase replication or log-based replication. The SLT stands for SAP's Landscape Transformation Server, and the third one that is a possibility is data services mode of replication. Okay, the Sybase replication basically replicates databases, and this is called as log-based replications. The logs created at the time of database inserts and updates and deletes, those logs are imported into the SAP HANA, and they're converted as transactions and stored in the SAP HANA system. The SLT is the SAP's landscape transformation server. So what it does is basically handles, it's an old concept, okay? But the thing what SLT usually does as a normal system is it handles data migration and it handles client copies and all of that. So that concept is imbibed into SAP HANA when you're using SLT to do real-time replication from SAP systems and databases into the HANA box. And the third option that you have is data services, which is an ETL, the only ETL that can be used with SAP HANA to move either SAP data or non-SAP data into SAP HANA. So your Oracle or let's say Excel files or anything, if you want to connect, data services is the best method if you're looking at non-SAP or SAP systems. Now once you actually move data into SAP HANA, where is it stored? Alright, I've been talking to you about data not stored on the database, I mean on the hard drive, but loading everything into the RAM, right? So the heart of the entire HANA appliance is basically the in-memory computing engine, IMCE. Alright, it consists of two very important blocks. One is the row and the column storages. Alright, these are on the RAM, and basically what you have is all of the data stored on the RAM. Alright, the RAM is able to hold all your data. The amount of data that you have on the entire production server is stored on the RAM, and it is stored as row stores and column stores. Okay, now the row stores are used basically for your inserts, your updates and all of those, because that is much faster for handling such kind of operations. Alright, but if you're looking at basic reporting and for bringing our data to the reporting layer at a very fast speed, you have column storages. Okay, a simple example will be if you're looking at just give me a second. Let's say you're looking at a normal Excel file. So you have just drawing. So let's say this is your table, okay? And we know this is columns, I mean these are rows. This is, let's say, customer, material, and let's say this is price. Okay, now these are rows and these are columns. Okay, so when you're trying to, let's say you're running a report saying I want to see customers C6, what the amount of price is, the amount of money he has spent. Okay, so what you usually do on a database is you go from left to right and then come back to the left to right. You will, possibility is you will see, the moment you see C1 you understand that this is not the row, but you will have to go through the entire row, come from the left to the right, come back to the beginning again, look all through, and finally come here, he'll find C6, then you know this is the row to be pushed onto the presentation layer. Whereas this technology of SAP HANA breaks a table into individual columns, okay, and each column is almost like a table. Alright, so the column stores basically accommodate data in the form of columns, and all these columns are individually connected using an index for stringing together the entire rows. So instead of doing a search from left to right, the search happens vertically down. So it's going to look for C1, C2, C3, C4, C5. It goes directly into C6 and understands this is the row. It picks up this entire row and returns it to the target, or returns it to the presentation layer. Okay, so it's going to save a lot of time. Also, because it's storing data in the form of columns, so even if it has multiple values, there is a high compression ratio because it stores only distinct values in individual columns, so it doesn't store duplicates. Okay, so that's an advantage that you'd have. So all of these will basically accumulate to extremely fast replication and extremely fast extraction of data into the presentation layer. Okay, so here, if you look at it, there is row and column storages. All right. So to handle, if you're going back to that Excel sheet, to handle, let's say I want to delete the row which is having customer C5. So if you're looking at row stores, so this is the individual column, so I go and delete off C5. But I also have to delete the entire row which is connected with C5. I need to delete M5 and 50 as well. But if I'm looking at row stores, if I see C5, I know this is the row that I'm going to delete. I can do it straight away. If it is a column store, I have to delete C5 from here, I can delete M5 from here and 50 from here. So it becomes a little difficult to handle inserts and updates on a column store, but it's very fast when you're looking at row stores. So for all of these operations, you will use row stores. For individual columns, you use, alright, so for retrieval, you use column stores, alright. So this is the row and column stores that you have. Calculation and planning engine basically are another block within the in-memory computing engine. When I say calculation, it's not basic arithmetic calculation, but basically translation of data. What does it mean? So you have the presentation layer. The user is looking at your data from the presentation layer. He has reports, dashboards, and all of these. And he's always going to input some kind of a query there. Right? He'll say, I want to see the customers who are buying a particular product. Okay, that is the query. So it has to come to the engine and then look for the data and then calculate that and bring it to the presentation layer. Now, your queries that are fired are basically dependent on the kind of reporting tool that you're using. It could be you're using a business objects reporting tool, or you could be using an Excel. All right. So when you do those, it has to convert that particular query into a format that is understandable by the SAP HANA appliance. All right. SAP HANA is basically a database, and it understands native SQL. All right. So the data has to be converted. If it's coming from business objects, it has BICS as the proprietary connection tool. So it has to convert the BICS into SQL. It has to convert MDX from Excel into SQL, native SQL. So it needs a translator, and what happens at the calculation engine is basically being translated from these individual proprietary connections into the SQL, native SQL language to go ahead and query them. The calculation engine itself has a lot of other sections inside it as well. So we'll talk about that a little later on as we go in depth into the in-memory computing engine. It also has the planning engines, all right, which handles very basic financial applications for handling planning as well. The calculation engine consists of the SQL parser, the SQL execution. It also has the MDX translation, it has the stored procedure translations, and a lot of other small engines inside as well. They help with the basic calculation. Once data is stored in your row stores and column stores, always remember you are looking at data specific where you want to look at real-time data. Okay, so let's say I'm talking about a very simple example like a sales order. Okay, the sales order basically consists of three segments, right? Your header data, your item data, and your schedule line data. And if you're looking at an SAP system or normal Oracle system, so all of these are linked on the schema. Okay, Sales order data goes separately, header, item data, and schedule, and all of them goes separately into the tables. And when we bring those tables individually into SAP HANA, since there's a different system, they're not linked here. So you need to go and link them, and you should go and give them the definition as to how they as tables work together. And that is what we do at the modeling studio. All of these individual tables that we bring in from different systems, we will go ahead and show a way of how you can link these tables, right, or model these tables. And here the modeling, usually the traditional approach is you're storing data into different layers of persistent modeling objects. But here within SAP HANA, you are not storing anything. You're just defining the condition for how to connect, and they're stored as views in here: attribute view, analytic view, and calculation view. All right, and then you're going to use those views to report on top of the SAP HANA onto the business objects or any of the reporting tools that can connect to SAP HANA appliance. All right, so this is how the working happens. Okay. So let's look at this is a little overview of what you have. The proprietary reporting tools can be Business Objects Explorer or Analysis or Webby or Crystal or Dashboards or Visual Intelligence, Lumira, Excel. So multiple tools that can run on top of SAP HANA. Okay, so we'll go back to what we're going to look at during this training. Basically, we've split this into almost 30 different topics. Okay, all of these topics do not take 1 hour or half an hour. Basically, it is depending on the criticality and the understanding. We will be either doing it as a smaller session or as a longer session. Okay. So here lesson 1 basically deals with giving you an overview about SAP HANA, the appliance, and also the database approach. The lesson 2 is basically aimed at looking at the product availability matrix. The product availability matrix deals with, we were talking about different kinds of servers for different users, right? So what are the probable servers that we have? What are the vendors actually providing to the users? So if I show you these are the kind of servers that we have. These are the configurations, and you will see that this is the kind of servers that we have: extra small, small, medium. These are depicted by t-shirt sizes, the uncompressed data that we have, the replication speeds, the pricing, all of that is there, the sizing guidelines and all that. So we'll be looking at all of these options in here on the product availability matrix. Lesson 3 is architecture, a very important session, trying to understand what are the different peripherals of the SAP HANA appliance. We talk about the architecture, the database, the data loading perspective, what are the possibilities, data modeling, how do we model data in here, reporting section, and administration. Alright, so all of these different topics we'll be looking at in the architecture. Lesson number 4 is basically SAP HANA system landscape. Now we used to having, or if you've worked on the software industry before, or the IT industry, I'll come to that, Deepak. We can load data without BODS as well. So if you're coming to the IT industry, you have different landscapes. You usually talk about development, quality, and production. All right, and usually in normal approaches, you have individual servers for each of these. The SAP HANA appliance is very expensive, so we're trying to accommodate all of it onto a one server, different landscapes, but you have the hosts on the system through which you can accommodate multiple landscapes as well. So we'll see how we can go and do that. What is a distributed SAP HANA system, and all of those we'll be looking in there. Lesson 5, we talk about system sizing guidelines. How do we define and decide what kind of servers we need to recommend for a particular client, depending on the exponential increase in the production data over a period of time, and whether the system is going to handle it or no. There's scale out and scale in options, so we'll look at those, and based on that we will define the system sizing. Right. On lesson number 6, we will talk about data provisioning, how to actually move data into SAP HANA. A couple of very important sessions where we have data services and SLT. So we'll see practically how to replicate data from SAP and non-SAP systems into SAP HANA. Then we have on lesson number 7 basic idea about SAP HANA Studio and how do we go ahead, and that's the only interface for us for SAP HANA service. And so we'll see how do we handle replications here, we'll see how to handle modeling here, how do we connect to different reporting tools from here. So all of that we get used to with the SAP HANA Studio. Now the modeling concept is basically the star schema modeling concept here, and we will see how do we create attribute views, analytic views, calculation views, and how do we move out your entire modeling or model from one landscape to the other. Alright, the attribute view is similar to a dimension, the analytic view is similar to a star schema model like the info cube, and then you have the calculation view, basically the multi-provider or a little complicated joins are defined using the calculation view. The export and the imports are basically to move your objects from one landscape to the other, or just take a backup of the entire thing. Once you are able to model data, define how they are related between each other, then you have a method to go and present this data at the presentation layer, and for this you have a whole business objects enterprise portfolio of tools, and we will look at what are the possible tools that we can use. Business objects exploration tool, analysis, you have Webby, Crystal, and would you be modeling using IDT with business objects 4.0 and above. So these we will go and look through during this, and we'll also look at the user management. Can we have a single sign-on across business objects and SAP HANA? Can we import profiles from SAP into HANA? So this is what we will be looking at the developer side. On the administration side, we will be looking at the installation screenshots. We'll be looking at the rack servers, cluster rack servers, scale in and scale out options, the different port numbers that we have, the distributed architecture, how do we handle disaster tolerance, how do we handle backups and recoveries, and what is the persistence layer all about. Special emphasis on SLT replication technique. We will be doing a full-time COPA business case scenario that SAP usually does. Then we talk about security and authorization from both SQL and graphical interface perspective. We'll talk about role of solution manager on the SAP's roadmap. And then we'll also look at one of the scenarios where SAP HANA is used as an underlying database over an application called as SAP BW. Alright, so we'll look at all of these, and then we will look at what are the usual certification questions that you would have. We'll discuss a few certification papers, and then we'll see what kind of questions we have, how many marks are allotted for each of these questions. So we'll look at the feel of how the certification exam looks like. Alright, so this is what we're going to look at during this session. Okay, any questions from the HANA perspective? You could. Now we will be looking at data services too at this moment. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. So along with this, we are also looking at the data services as an ETL that we're going to use with us, right? So data services is, if you guys are from a background from ETL, you would know that data services basically is an ETL that was used with business objects, right? We all know business objects for its wonderful presentation layer, but when SAP acquired business objects along with the presentation layer, it also had an ETL tool which was called as data integrator, data quality, and data federator. So SAP integrated a few of these tools together and they call it as data services now. Alright. The only ETL tool through which you are loading data into the SAP HANA box is basically through the data services. Alright. You have the SLT as another mechanism for loading data into SAP HANA, but if you're looking at major transformations that you want to handle, then you will be using data services. Alright, so now I showed you this picture of SAP HANA previously, and I told you that, okay, this is how data is being loaded. Now SAP HANA is optimized for handling real-time reports, but it is not that you would load basic junk data into SAP HANA, cleanse it there, and then transform data and all that. So what we can do when we're loading data into SAP HANA is the replication engine should have the capability to transform the data as well. Okay, you should be able to cleanse data, you should be able to split the data and then load it into SAP HANA depending on the requirement. Okay, so all of these so SAP's SLT system, SAP's Landscape Transformation Server, has basic transformation capabilities. SAP's Data Services tool has huge amounts of transformation capabilities, also has cleansing as a part of the tool. Sybase has no transformation capability, and the direct extraction connection has a little transformation capability. Okay. So coming back to data services, what we will be looking in this sessions is basically trying to understand how we can go ahead and connect different sources. Okay, SAP HANA is basically using data from multiple sources, need not be always SAP. From SAP or non-SAP, and connecting to SAP HANA target system. So in those scenarios, when it's trying to connect it to the SAP HANA system, so what are the different possibilities? Can it be databases? Can it be SAP systems? And can it be web services? So flat files. So how do you go and integrate these different sources with SAP HANA is what we will be looking at with data services. Okay. Now, data services or data integrator basically is able to connect to different sources. Okay, so when you connect to different sources, the thing is you need to understand that language. So let's say you're talking about Oracle system that you're connecting to, you should understand the database tables, you should understand the interfaces through which it will connect, the functions it has. Alright, if you're connecting to an SAP system, you should understand the language of IDOCs, hierarchies, and tables, and function modules, and all of these. Alright, so each system has a different kind of interface at which you can interact, and that is called as the metadata. So the table that is involved for transformation should be imported into SAP data services, and then you can transform it there. Okay. And then once that data is transformed, you would push that data to the consolidated database or application, on top of which you have the business objects enterprise. Again, what you see here, data lineage and impact analysis, are a few of the important tools that come along with the data services. And then You can date back to changes that have happened previously, and you can also look at what are the changes that might happen in or what changes will cause impacts onto which objects also you can look at in the impact analysis. Now, I'm not going to dwell a lot into this basically because there was the version 3.0 prior, then like in any other tool. They have improved versions. They've come up with data services 3.2. Then came tighter integration with SAP 4.2, 4.1, and now there is version 4.2. So we will be learning how to go ahead and replicate data from SAP data services or SAP CCC through data services into HANA. How do we push data? Alright, so we'll look at real-time scenarios, how often they do it, and how can we do it, can we handle transformation inside, all of that. Prior to SAP acquiring business objects data services, it was called as data integrator and data quality separately. Each of them had its own server, had its own repository, and had its own interface. And this is called as data integrator. This tool was called as data quality. And data integrator is the only ETL tool. So it would bring data from different sources and then transform it. And it would send for data quality purpose onto the data quality server. And then you would check for data quality and it will return the data. The interface for data quality is architect, for integrator is designer. And the same name designer is kept now. They both are, SAP thought both of them together should be a better option. So they brought both of them onto the same platform. Now the naming is data services, which is a combination of data integration and data quality. They use one server, one repository, and one interface in this. Now, we'll look at what SAP defines data services as. It defines data services as a powerful enterprise class data integration and data quality solution. And the whole point of using data services is one development, runtime, and management environment that allows you to integrate, transform, improve, and deliver data anywhere at any frequency. So that is the basic idea of using the data services. All right. Now, it's able to handle both batch jobs and real-time jobs. Batch jobs are the ones which basically are scheduled with reference to time. All right. What I mean is, so you would mention it that it should run sometime around 8 in the evening after your business hours, so you can schedule them to run at that point of time. Or you could say, the moment there is a change on that SAP system, automatically I should be able to trigger off. So you could use real-time jobs as well. Okay. It's able to accommodate both. So you're able to bring in data from multiple sources and push it into through data services into the usual component data warehouse. What I'm trying to stress here is it's not that data services is able to bring in data from multiple sources. It also has the staging engine where you can load data from different sources into the staging level, and you can basically send it back into the individual sources as well. It need not be always loading into the warehouse. So it has a staging engine as well. And if you guys have seen Informatica or any of the workflows, you would find that this is the usual process of linking that they have, and data services is no exception. So different transforms are linked here, and then you would be able to move data from the source to target at the same time, transform your data along the way. These are the different transformations that they have. Basically, transformations are capabilities for transforming data, but most of the times the definitions of them are given. All that you need to do is just handle the configuration and then data is automatically transformed, not necessary for any great language that you need, SQL and all that, are additionals that you can have over and above these graphical interfaces. Okay. The architecture of SAP's data services consists of the repository as a central component connected to different servers, which basically is called as the data services service, which consists of the access server, the job server, and the engines. The job server is primarily used for batch jobs and access server for real-time jobs. The engines are used for cleansing purposes. Alright, so data quality is handled using the engines. When we say data quality, it is always a term that is used in reference, or you would have a standard, only then you would have a quality aspect coming into picture. So if you're looking at your data, if you're looking at quality, you need to have a standard set of files, and all of these are called as dictionaries and directories stored on these cleansing package. And when you run your job, the data that is going through these transforms are compared with these dictionaries and directories, and you would know whether your data is within the quality standards or it's just falling out. Right? So that is what you can look at. The repository is also connecting to the management console and to the designer. The management console basically is the administration console for it. It is a web-enabled tool. Basically, you can look at the monitoring aspect. You can look at reports that you can generate on top of BODS, statistics, and auto documentation reports, and all of these can be done from the management console. The designer is the interface that we'll be working on. So there are two interfaces now that we'll be looking into regularly. One is the data services designer interface, and one is the SAP's HANA interface called as the HANA Studio. All right. So this is a little background drop of what we are going to cover during this training. Okay, so there are a lot of topics that we'll be looking into data services as well. How do you connect different sources, Oracle systems? How do you connect flat files? How do you connect SAP systems, database systems? How do you extract data? What kind of transformations can we use? All right, so all of that we will be looking into. How do you handle incremental loads? All right, how do you handle slowly changing dimensions? So all of this we will be looking at during this sessions. So at this point I'll give you time if you have any questions, either with business objects or data services or HANA or BW. You can ask me questions from there. All right. So any questions, guys? Also one more question, if SAP BW or ERP was on HANA, then the logic of bringing data to HANA only for reporting would arise. Now the thing is, SAP HANA is an appliance. Basically the appliance is aimed at churning and then able to produce the data at real time. So you have the servers that support that. When you're using it with applications like BW or in ECC or anything, the thing is it is used as a normal database. So if you're loading it on SQL, how it's going to work? It's going to work on a similar front. All right. So each of these applications, if they have individual reporting tools, you can report on top of BEX if you want to, or BW. If you're using with ECC, you will have to use one of business objects reporting portfolios, and then so if you're using HANA as a database, it's basically enhancing the speed and directly using it as an underlying database. Alright, so if you're modeling data into BW, that is the first modeling, Then if you're using it with SAP HANA appliance, it is again modeling the existing model. So you don't want to do that. So instead you have HANA being used as an underlying database itself. Alright, Deepak? Any other question, Roy or Deepak, Khaja or Umesh? So modeling in BW and HANA are not similar. The modeling in BW is basically extended star schema. You have concepts of SID and all of that. Whereas in HANA modeling, it is direct star schema modeling that we're talking about. So since SAP HANA as a database handles only star schema modeling and BW's extended star schema modeling, with BW version 7.3, there have been changes made to accommodate this database with BW. So we'll look at those changes that have happened as well. Khaja, go ahead. Do you want me to unmute you? Just give me a second.
Are you going to like take us through IPS also?
IPS is the CMC that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's a part of the installation IPS. So once you have installed IPS, there's not a lot of things that you would do from there.
No, I'm just concerned about the data stores that you'll be creating, like to load like data into HANA tables.
So wherever it's necessary to get into CMC, because that's the interface for handling both business objects and data services at the same point. So
Right.
we'll look at that. Yeah, so we'll look at that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Scenario for BODS HANA project. I didn't get that, Deepak. You want me to unmute you? You have a microphone? Yeah, Deepak. I've unmuted you. I think you should unmute it from your end. Umesh, the data quality setup on boards is also moved into another tool as well. The basic transformations are there in here. You also have information steward as an extension for data quality into the profiling tool. Right, so if you want to handle quality part, you can define your quality transforms in information steward as well. You also have the data quality transforms within the normal data services environment, and you can configure the dictionaries and directories, the paths of the dictionaries and directories, so that you can use them with the data quality transforms. All right, you basically define the rules of how you're going to transform the data and how you want the checks to happen, and your weighted scores and all that in the data quality. And that's what you're going to use when you're trying to move data from one source to the other. So automatically, when you've configured that, when you run your jobs, you would automatically look at data that is actually you would say that it is checked or the standard files are there in the dictionaries and directories, and these are referenced with your actual data, and based on whether it's within the quality range or no, you would have scores that get generated, and based on that you can choose whether you want to keep the data or you want to transform it with data quality. Deepak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. See, so I was asking what could be a real-time, BODS HANA project. I was thinking about either SAP BW or SAP HANA with BODS. So that's what I,
See,
a real-time. Yeah. How would it be used?
BODS is a replication engine. Alright, so what BODS does basically is to move data from an SAP system or move data from a non-SAP system into the SAP HANA box. Okay. Now, as a HANA developer, what your core strength is basically to look at basic modeling from different tables. But there is always a dependency on who is going to bring the data from these different sources into the HANA box. Okay, and that could be either using data services as one of the tools, or you could use SAP's landscape transformation server or direct extraction connection. So there are multiple options. Data services is one of the most used options across the globe, where you have HANA implementations, because it handles transformations capability as well, and it's very simple to use. It has the openness to connect to SAP and non-SAP sources. So because of that, and it's near real time, so they use data services a lot during HANA projects. Yeah.
Okay. So the skill set for the course that if I take this course, the skill set, primary skill set would be HANA modeling.
That is true. We are aimed at learning HANA modeling, and we'll also be looking at a little of data services, how to move data into SAP HANA.
Okay. So are there so many, so what would you recommend to start with SAP BW or SAP HANA? No.
See, BW.
Sorry, my background is reporting based on a tool called SAS, which is a code-based reporting. So you could access data, you could transform or manipulate data, and you can do reporting using a single tool. That is what is using a SAS. So that's what I was wondering. Should I move to SAP BW or HANA?
SAP HANA is where the industry is moving to. It becomes inevitable a little probably from now that every enterprise will be pushed to use SAP HANA either as a database or as an appliance. So it's majorly for you to choose. Now, even if you're looking at BW, BW is used with HANA. All right, so we'll be looking at that concept as well during our training. So,
yeah, and when you go into the market, how much experience do you, I have only a 2-year experience into reporting. So how much experience would people ask for a role of SAP HANA developer?
SAP HANA developer, there's something that is coming new. So you will find that a lot of people will be chosen based on your certification and a little modeling environment.
Okay.
And if you have business objects, so it's more of a multi-skilled option that you have. Right, you could be a core HANA developer with BODS experience, or you could be HANA with business objects experience. So that's how they're going to choose it.
Okay, and for modeling and all, what I see is it's all drag and drop. So how much of coding would require in real-time project?
Depends on the complexity of it. Some of them have straight mappings that you can drag into. Some of them have stored procedures that they write in SQL. It could get pretty complex when you're using stored procedures.
So stored procedures are basically formulas that you put to come up to a KPI or something.
It could be that. You could even use a reusable piece of code, write it as a stored procedure, more like a function.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, and could you also explain a little about certification as well?
Right, so we will be looking at certification as well. We've been collecting questions from around the globe for all the certifications that they happen. So we'll be giving you the dump of certification questions for the latest version of HANA certification. I think sometimes it's good enough that you go through the certification after training, and we've seen a lot of people crack it with over and above 90 percentile. So you shouldn't have no problems once you finish your course and if you go through the certification questions. We'll give you the latest version of the material as well for certification. Let me just check with Ravi, and then we will see if we can start the class a little earlier. Yeah, Deepak.
Unmuted. Okay, see what, so I sat with some of my, colleagues in my company and tried to understand what exactly is an OLAP project, so that one part would be an ETL process, somebody getting all the data from other sources, and then they're putting into any tool like Burst or ClickView or Cognos. Then you do a facts dimension table, and then you do reporting on it. So this sounds very similar to that, except that it's on an in-memory database.
It is. It's not too difficult, but it's a new concept. Okay, so you need to understand what you're going to do within the in-memory concept to even understand what happens in here. All right, so it's not too difficult to understand. It's basic. It's not like just not any other ETL tool or any other modeling tool. You have a few concepts that are a little different from the rest of the tools. So we need to understand that, what HANA is basically about, and we'll see what transforms the data that it is able to perform it really fast. So that's where we are aimed at. You will see a lot of enterprises already shifting to use either HANA as an appliance mode or using HANA as a database mode. So you will, unless there is a difference, and other strategy from SAP is that it will force people to use these database. So the roadmap is to have one HANA database across the entire enterprise, where different applications will use different schemas of the SAP HANA system. So you will see that the industry will move towards that, and so we will look at all of the possible scenarios of how SAP HANA is being used, right? On data services, how it can be used as a central repository. On, let's say, if you're using with BW, how you can use it as an underlying database, how they use this for an RDS solution. So all of these we will be looking at. Unmuted. Yes, we will help you with that, but you can speak to Ravi also relating to that. All right. All right, guys. So any other questions, or can we call it a day? Alright, so the recording session will be sent to you, and I'll see you around in tomorrow's session. The schedules will be sent to you, and we can join in accordingly. Alright? Thanks for attending this session, and I'll see you around in tomorrow's session. Take care, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.